Welcome to Victorious Living with your host, Pastor Tia C., where we grow by grace, rest in faith, and do all things through Christ. I hope you had a great week and that you're ready to unveil another aspect of victorious living. Today's nugget of grace is relationship. Tag a friend and let's talk. So, relationship. Relationship is a big umbrella. And you know that you have intimate relationships, you have non-intimate relationships, family relationships. We can just go on and on and on. But basically, I'm going to categorize the relationships in two ways tonight: the intimate relationship and the non-intimate relationship. Relationship is the way that two people connect with each other. And that's a big deal because a lot of times people think because we share common space that we're in a relationship. But not so. If there is no connection, if there's no joining, if there's no unifying, doesn't exactly fit the definition of relationship. Relationship is also the way in which two people talk to each other or communicate with each other. And when you think about communicating, it's like a buzzword to say, communicate. Communication is key. You have to communicate. But what does that mean? Communication is the exchange of information. It is actually allowing yourself to exchange your ideas, not just the base level of I'm sharing information that you could have picked up yourself. That's kind of an entry level of communication. But when I add my thoughts and my ideas and I'm willing to trust that to you, that's an effective communication. And relationship embodies the way that two people do that. Relationship also is the way in which two people behave toward one another. And that's real important because you see a lot of people call themselves friend, or they may be in family relationships, and definitely those who say that they have some type of monogamous, exclusive, intimate relationship. How do you behave yourself with one another and toward one another? Because when you think of the word behave, when kids are little and we say behave, what are we saying? We're saying act properly, act appropriately. And so relationship embodies the way that two people behave toward each other. When you're in a relationship, there is a way that someone should treat you that makes you feel a certain way, that lets you know where you stand with them. And the same for you. You should behave in such a way that you set the tone. And it's interesting because when you're in a relationship, we have common manners and common courtesy. It's just the nature of our country. It's the expectation. And true, everybody doesn't act like they were raised with it, but that's the expectation of our country. But when you're in a relationship with someone, that behavior is even more poignant. And you can tell body language changes, tone of voice changes, and there's a specific way of behaving that is appropriate. When you see a husband and wife interacting with one another, I would not expect a spouse to interact or behave the same with everybody that they do or the way that they do with their own spouse. Relationship is also the way in which two people deal with each other. Now that's interesting because the word deal is almost abstract. It could seem like an abstract word, but actually when you talk about dealing with someone, you're talking about the actions that you take in respect to the person. You're talking about handling things in a competent manner. You're also talking about coping effectively because any relationship is going to have some bumps in it. Are you effective in how you handle that? Do you cope with it effectively? Or are you, explosive? Are you abusive? Are you mean? Are you unforgiving? Or do you deal with it properly? And so just putting it all together, relationship is the way in which two people connect with, talk to, behave toward, and deal with one another. Guess what? To have healthy, loving, and stable relationships is not inborn. We don't come to planet Earth knowing how to be in relationship. We don't come as newborn babes saying, I think I'll think about the other person. jokingly, we say infants can be quite selfish. You know, they don't know that crying at 3 o'clock in the morning is not a good relationship skill. They don't know that demanding that you feed me, even if you're hungry, is not a good relationship skill. And we don't interpret it that way because we understand they don't know. We will teach them how to be considerate. We'll teach them how to behave. We'll teach them how to interact with people. And so that's real important because our ability to form healthy relationships starts in our infancy. And it is sculpted, it is shaped by our life's experiences. And that's a big thing. I think a lot of people struggle with relationships because they are like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Or where'd you come from? And the thing is, we fail to remember sometimes that nobody's born knowing how to do it, but everybody learned it along the way. But what did you learn? Let's look at a few things. You ever heard of the hierarchy of needs? Well, hierarchy of needs tells us that each of us have needs that must be met in us. And they let us know that depending on how these needs are met or not met, is how we'll respond to other people. So I'm going to walk you through this hierarchy of needs as we think about how it impacts our ability to have healthy relationships with other people. When you look at the bottom of the pyramid, you have your physiological needs, basic stuff like feed me, give me something to drink, let me be in the right temperature, right? Let me get sleep when I need sleep. When people are born in environments where food comes naturally for them, you know, you give a little and somebody knows, feed you, change you, make sure if it's cold that the blanket is back on the baby, or if it's hot, make sure that the baby's not too hot. If that's happening in your world, you learn to be very responsive to people. But suppose in your world, when you were an infant, you cried because you were hungry, or you were wet, or you were cold, or whatever the case may be, and nobody came. And then finally somebody comes and they barely give you enough food, or they come yank you up out of a crib somewhere like you offended them, right? Of course, you wouldn't know that word as a baby, but they treat you like that. Now, here you are, fast forwarding, you're an adult, and you're in a relationship. And you're looking at this person next to you and you're like, why are they so selfish? Dang, they don't think about anybody but their self. They're so selfish, right? Well, guess what? They learned way back in relationship that people don't look out for you. People don't meet your needs. When you need help, people don't come and aid or assist you. And so they're very selfish and self-centered. And you get people saying things like, you got to watch out for yourself. If you don't watch out for yourself, nobody else will. That's not a healthy attitude. It's an unfortunate attitude that some people, a lot of people, have had to deal with because someone was deficient in how they cared for them, how they related to them, how they provided or failed to provide for their needs. But then you have the other person in a relationship who's very generous. They're always thoughtful. You know, they get one, they buy one for you. They get some, they ask you, do you want some? They open the door, they consider you walking behind them, where the other person let the door slam, bust you in your face, right? And you're thinking, what in the world? Each of them had their needs either met or not met. And the funny thing about it is you can't pinpoint someone's story, so you actually have to have that exchange of communication. You have to talk with them about it. What was your growing up experience like? How were your needs met? Who met your needs for you as you were growing up? Because one person never had their needs met in an appropriate way, and they're like real selfish and hoarding and self-protecting, and you're like, dang, go on, you know, because they were never cared for, and so they're so afraid that somebody won't take care of their needs or that they'll lack, and they may have grown up saying, I'll never be hungry again, I'll never not have again, and so they're hoarders and they're selfish and they're very narrow, you know, very narrow-minded in the way they approach life, but really it's not because they're thinking against you, they're in self-preservation mode, right? And they need that enlarged. But what's funny is somebody else could have that same experience where their needs weren't met, and they grow up to be very generous. And you're like, well, how is that the case? Because they may have said to themselves, instead of saying, I'll never be hungry again, They may have said to themselves, I would never let a child be hungry who I care for. I would never see somebody without and not help. So it depends on how you internalize the experience, but our own experiences, our own needs being met, our own needs not being met, help to shape our pattern of how we interact with people, and therefore the type of relationships that we have with people. Another need is the need for safety, protection. We all need to know. Do you know one of the, I think it's just a few, I'm going to guess and say two, but I know there are very few fears that humans are born with. And one of the fears is loud sound. Babies, you do not have to teach a baby to be afraid of a loud sound. It's innate. The other is the fear of falling or being dropped. For some reason, the human psyche, the human brain, the human mind, whatever it is, knows to be afraid of that sensation of falling. Can you imagine growing up and never feeling safe? The person who should protect you violates you. The person who should provide for you doesn't, they take from you, they leave you, they abandon you, they don't meet your needs. The person who should protect your privacy and your secrets puts you out there on blast, right? So everything from a physical need for safety to an emotional need for protection, we need it. We need it. We need to, when we feel that sensation that we're falling physically or emotionally, we need to feel somebody pull you close to let you know you're not falling, or I got you. You know what I'm saying? Well, if that need, depending on how that need is met or not met, carries over into a person's ability to trust, to be trustworthy. And so as they enter into relationships, you end up saying, wow, what was your situation? Was it met? Was it not met? How did that impact you? And then it goes on up to self-esteem, belonging, and love. I love that one about belonging and love. You know that every human being needs to belong somewhere. I have a friend who says that Cheers is their favorite song, that show that used to come on television. And it says, that they're going to Cheers. It says, I want to go someplace where everybody knows my name and they're always glad I came. Every human being wants to belong somewhere. You want to know people aren't looking you up and down. You want to know people aren't backbiting and whispering when you walk by. You want to know when you leave the room or when the party's over or whatever the celebration is, that they're not tearing you apart and criticizing you. You want to know they were actually glad that you came. When you walk in the room and people be like, hey, how's it going? How's it going? How you doing? You want that. Not because you're needy, but because you're a healthy human. They have shown through studies that when babies look at you, what they are looking for is eye-to-eye contact. That blows my mind, that an infant who can't read, who cannot talk, who cannot walk, who cannot tell you, I went to the bathroom or I'm hungry, knows instinctively to look for the eyes of another human being. The Bible talks about the eyes being the window of the soul, and I only can believe that that's the experience. Like when I'm looking at the back of your head, nothing about that is connecting. But when I look into your eyes, and you get babies who coo at you when they look in your eyes, or cry when they look in your eyes, and we say things like, babies know, right? But yeah, some kind of way is something from one human to another that babies look for the eyes of another human being. And so as we were growing, did we get that sense of belonging? Were we always condemned? Were we always belittled? Did somebody always tell us what was wrong? Even if we did something good, they're like, yeah, that was good, but. Or did you get that sense of acceptance and belonging and love? I know when I was growing up, now y'all don't laugh at this, because every teenager had your goofy look stage, right? You go back and you look at them pictures and you thought you were the bomb back then. You'd be like, oh my goodness, look at my teeth. My teeth were scattered. Look at my skin. It was erupted. Look at my hair. What in the world was going on? We all have those pictures in those transitional years you would love to hide, right? But I remember going through my transitional years, and my paternal grandfather, who is just phenomenal, he used to, when I walk in the door, he would go, there's my beautiful girl. And it was so funny because you smile, and I would just lay into him because it was so endearing, because as a teenager, you felt so awkward. You knew you looked goofy, especially if you were going through one of those real obvious physical changes. But my granddad always says it, there's my beautiful girl. And it carried me through until I was confident to say, whoever I am, I am. However I look, I look. But I'm good. I'm okay. People who matter to me accept me, right? But you know there are people who didn't get that. If you ask them, who was your I belong person, they would either have to take a long study or they'd be like, I don't have one of those people. My grandmother was another one. She has a posse of grandchildren. But every one of us could walk through that door and you would have thought some big time, all time star walked through her door because she had that ability to make every one of us feel like you are all that plus some more. But do you know there are a lot of us who didn't have that? They can't remember the person who made you feel like I know your name and I'm glad you came. It's just like you're part of the crowd, and that's not a good feeling. And so when we go into relationships, we either carry over insecurities that make us too needy, or we carry over hurts that make us too aloof, too indifferent. So how we were raised and how our needs were met, how well we were esteemed, not so much that everything you do is great and wonderful and then you all arrogant and you think you all that and nobody else matters. That's too much. But not nothing you do is good enough and then you're a worm and everybody else is great. Too much on both sides. The reality is we need that. You do this great, you need to work on this. This one, maybe you ought to pass that. This one, yeah, you're doing fine. We need that in our lives, right? Because it helps us not only be okay with ourselves, but when we enter into relationship with other people, either intimate or non-intimate relationships. And when I say are non-intimate, again, it's your friends, it's your family and stuff like that. But when you enter into those non-intimate or those intimate relationships, it allows you to accept people as not needing to be perfect. You can be you. You can have some great things to you and some not so great things to you. You can have some super talents and some, you can't do that. You know what I mean? It's okay. But if your needs haven't been met or they've been skewed, you enter into relationship ultra needy, ultra aloof, or skewed. But here's some good news. As humans, our faulty launching pad does not dictate our final destination. If people in your life didn't honor relationship in the way it was supposed to, they didn't play their role right, they didn't respond well, they wouldn't let you be a part of their life, or whatever the case may have been, you don't have to stay stuck in their dilemma. You can choose to say, wow, that's what's happening right now. My marriage is struggling so much because I never had a loving, kind model before me. I never saw the men and women in my family show kindness and respect to each other. I never saw them show a wholesome intimacy. So here I am married now, and I'm so indifferent and aloof and far-fetched from my spouse, you know. People wouldn't even know we were married unless we told them, right? You can say, that's what's fueling that. I don't want that for my life, and I don't want to model that for the next generation. And because humans have that elasticity about us, you can change it. You can go back and say to yourself, I see where the breakdown is. Now I'm going to break this chain, this cycle of bad news and bad pattern, and I'm going to start a new pattern, a better pattern. Maybe you're looking and you're saying, I don't know why I'm so clingy. I don't know why I'm so needy, right? But maybe if you go back and you begin to look at that hierarchy of needs and say, you know what, I never had people really validate me. You know, they would say your little nappy-headed self, or your bumpy-faced self, or your buck-teeth self, or your tall, skinny self, or your short, fat self. It's horrible, some of the things that people say to us as we're growing up. But that stuff gets into the hearts and the psyche of people at different levels. And maybe you can look back and say, you know what? I never felt accepted. And so finally, when I got grown or older and I met someone who accepted me, I was like a Klingon. I clung on too much. I'm like that permanent sticky glue stuff, right? And that's not healthy either. So maybe if I can address where this started, I can say, hey, you can loosen up because there is a balance, right? But you know, sometimes very needy people get together. And so it seems very normal to them because they both are needing that. But do you want to create that cycle for your children, or do you want to bring a balance? You know what I'm saying? And it's not just in intimate relationships that people are like that. I remember having a friend who was always calling and be like, I ain't talked to you. And finally I had to say, you're not my girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? I'm heterosexual. This is my man. You are my friend. I do not need to talk to you every day, several times in a day. This is insane. Lighten up, loosen up. And so my friend had to come to understand, I love you. And I have a blast when I'm with you. But I do not want a relationship with you like I have with my man. You know what I mean? And so when we go back and we can examine sometimes what our upbringing was like, what our experiences were like, whether our needs were met in a satisfactory way or not, it can help us change our pattern. And ultimately, when you get to the top of this hierarchy of needs, you come to this self-fulfillment where you become the best you want to be without all your insecurities driving you, without all your inhibitions, you know what I'm saying? Without all that stuff pushing you further than you want to be pushed, you can balance it out. So I want to talk just a few more moments about some types of relationships. Some are not that great, some are great, but no matter where we find ourselves, again, the good news is we can change. The Bible says we perish for lack of knowledge. Sometimes when we don't know what's driving us, we're stuck. And we don't want to address it even. We don't want to acknowledge it because we're like, I don't know what to do about it. But when I have the information that can empower me to make the changes I may wish to make, it becomes easier to confront things. So some types of relationships are codependent. Now, codependent can be either intimate or non-intimate. And that's where two people cannot function without the other person. I think it would, if I had responded the way my friend was clinging on to me, that would have been a codependent relationship. Some people who are like that, and they tend to attract people like that because they're like, I never had anybody to love me. I just want my own. Nobody ever made me feel like all that. And so they cling on to each other in an abnormal way. And people think, oh, it's great how they're so together. There is a togetherness that is very healthy. But when, as soon as you're out of each other's sight, you're breaking down, you're insecure, you think someone can steal your intimate mate, you think they like their other friend if it's a non-intimate relationship better than they like you, it's a telltale sign that that's a codependent relationship and it's too much. You want to back up and you want to have security. You don't want to have to be so consumed until it's just consuming your world. The only thing you want to consume your world like that is your love for God. Another relationship is the dominating one, where despite the rules that are set in the relationship, that person can make you turn into a jellyfish. You know, like you say, I don't like going to this place. And they're like, we're going to this place. And you find yourself going. If you find yourself always compromising and doing things you don't want to do, going places you don't want to go, entertaining people you don't enjoy being with, you may be in a dominating relationship. Either you're dominating someone or you're being dominated. Not your healthy place. And this program is about living victoriously. And dominating or being dominated is not your victorious place. Another is toxic. A toxic relationship is when two people have a mutual interest in one another, but have drastically different opinions, beliefs, maybe even different integrity levels, right? So much so that you're always fighting about it. Like, I don't understand why you don't understand what I understand. I don't know why you don't see it the way I see it. You don't get it? What's up with, you're just constantly at each other because really you're like opposing, you're different. But that thing that has drawn you together keeps you together, but it's toxic. So much so that you bring out the worst in each other. How about that? So many people are dating and married who are toxic. It's a shame. I feel bad for them. But you know what? In an intimate relationship, there's such extreme attraction. Like somebody say, man, you can't find a woman finer than her. Or somebody say, girl, that's a man. And so you have that element going, but it's toxic. Because outside of that extreme attraction, you are like night and day, up and down. And it brings out the worst in you, always bickering over everything else that you don't have in common or that doesn't align. In a non-intimate relationship, people do that sometimes because they're networking with you or they're intrigued by you or they admire your accomplishments. And so you say you're friends. Like I'm working in the company and the boss, nobody really likes the boss, but the boss likes me and invited me over to their house or something. Toxic, because you don't like them either. What the rest of the company sees, you see it too. But you're intrigued by their success, or you are awed that they took the time to notice you, but it's toxic. It's not genuine. And then there's the working hard relationship. I got that off the internet. That was really funny to me. This one says two people who really want the same thing, and so they're willing to make a lot of changes for it. And I'm like, that doesn't seem bad, but keep listening. They don't actually have interest in one another's passions or hobbies, but they participate and act as if they're interested, right? But actually the relationship is exhausting. Okay, check it out in the intimate one. Two people who want love, two people who want marriage, two people who want something. So you found someone who wants what you want. And so you move heaven and earth to make sure the two of y'all stay together, because I've been looking for years for somebody who wanted to be married. Nobody wanted to be married. So now I got somebody who wants to be married. Or I've been looking for someone who's romantic and whimsical. And I wanted me a person like that. I wanted a girl who could do that. I wanted a guy who could do that, right? You find them. The relationship is exhausting because you're constantly having to change everything about yourself, the way you think, the way you talk, the way you dress, the places you go, because it's a work hard relationship. There's no flow to that relationship. And the thing that's sad is that at the end of the day, for the intimate one, that person wanted love. They don't love you. They want love. They're in love with love. They're in love with marriage. They're in love with romance. And since you are too, well, let's hook up, right? But if somebody had come before you, they would be in this work hard relationship with them. And if y'all cannot figure it out, after this is over, they'll be in the next work hard relationship with the next person who loves love or loves romance or loves whatever it is they're chasing. And that relationship looks good to the eye because it just looks like, oh, wow. But you could change the name and face at any time, and they would still be moving forward with the same passion. That's not so great. In a non-intimate relationship, you have friends like that. People who like, I just want a best friend, right? And you get into that scenario, the same thing. It's friendship that I wanted. It's not so much that it's you that I want as my friend. You get the difference? That's a hard relationship to be in. And then there's the seem right relationship. That one looks good for all intents and purposes. So on the intimate side, he or she is great looking, they are intelligent, they have a great job, they have a great personality, and they treat you great, right? But there's no chemistry. Why are you proposing to or accepting the proposal of someone that has no chemistry? And people say, girl, you crazy. He have everything. Man, what else you want? She has everything except chemistry. And I'm not talking about just sexual chemistry, but I got to tell you this. If you're in an intimate relationship with no sexual chemistry, you talking about getting married and spending the rest of your life and laying in the bed next to them, you might as well just be laying with a body length pillow. Not a good decision. Not a good decision. In the non-intimate relationship, the seem right could be we grew up in the same community, our family are friends, we've been together since we were kids, but as we grew, we're not really friends. We found we had different interests. We tend to pick different friends. We like different types of guys or whatever the case may be, right? But it seems right. You guys have been together since kindergarten. And so circumstances are pushing you guys to be friends. Except there is no friend chemistry. Nothing about me trusts you like that. Nothing about you makes me want to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, let's go hang out or whatever the case may be. And so it's the seem right relationship, but there's no friendship chemistry. Don't be there. And then there's the me, myself relationship. Now that one is funny because on the intimate side, you have two people who are not willing to compromise for the relationship. They always put themselves first, but they usually can disguise it in being a power couple. He's about his thing, she's about her thing. You see them flipping their calendars and in their cell phones all the time. They bump lips as they go off to save the world again, right? But they don't have a relationship with each other. They're either cohabitating or sharing a last name or maybe raising some kids together, but they do not have it for each other. They are not in relationship with each other. There are people who said, by the time I'm 20, I want this. By the time I'm 25, I want that. By the time I'm 30, I want that. And man, they're moving forward. And guess what? The person, by the time I'm this age, I want to be married. So they pick them up and add them to their plan too. Do you know what I look like? Do you know my name? Do you know what I like or don't like? Do you know when I'm feeling good or when I'm sick? Do you care? Well, in the me, myself relationship, they don't care. You're a part of my plan, and I'm moving forward. For the non-intimate side, two people get what they want out of it. Now, that one usually is lopsided, and outsiders can see it a little better, but it's usually that person who's like, you have something I want. Maybe you are the boss's daughter, so I'm friends with you. Maybe you own the company that I want to own, or you enter the field I'm hoping to enter into. And so it's very lopsided. That one, I got something I want out of it, and I'm not going to sacrifice or compromise. I'm not even going to be kind to you if I don't have to be kind to you, and I'm just going to keep on bordering this thing in my favor. Well, that's not a healthy relationship either. But there is something called a healthy, loving, balanced relationship. That relationship are when two people are actually compatible. Where two people are literally interested in one another. I'm not just interested in being in love, I am in love with you. So if you change the face, I'm no longer in love. If you change the person, I'm no longer in love. It's actually you that I'm interested in. And in that relationship, the intimate one says, I'm in love with you. We are interdependent. We both can stand on our own. We're not needy and insecure, but we choose to combine, to communicate, to behave, to talk together, to connect, to deal with. That's our actual desire and our choice. Not like I'll do it. No, I want to do it. And they are the ones who will sacrifice for the relationship, because to them, it's just like, it's automatic. It's compulsory. You know you got to give and take. And that's what I want to do with you. I'm not giving with them and I'm not taking from them. But for you, I'm going to give and I'm going to take. That's a healthy balance and a healthy flow. And on the intimate side, there is sexual chemistry. I am not your sister, husband. While I may look at my brother and say, wow, my brother is the ideal man. I would love to find a man like my brother. I don't want any feelings for my brother. So my husband has all those wonderful attributes and qualities, but nothing about him when I'm with him makes me think of my brother. You get it? So that's a healthy, intimate relationship. And the non-intimate relationship is where two people are really compatible. Maybe they have same personalities. Maybe they have same interests and hobbies. They're literally interested in the well-being of one another. We don't even have to compete. You can like tall guys and I can like short guys. You could like this business and I'm over in this field. But we genuinely click. And we're interested in one another's success. We cry together. We laugh together. We encourage one another. I'm not in it to get something out of it from you. I'm in it because I'm in it with you. You're in it because you're in it with me. And so we can ride this together and not be competitors. There is a genuine flow. And so these are the types of relationships. These are some of the reasons why we behave the way we do in our relationships. And so I hope this was helpful to you. It helps me. I love looking at my patterns. I like reflecting on how my needs were met and seeing how I carry it into my marital relationship, how I carry it into my parental relationship, how I carry it into my pastoral relationship. And when it's a little bit skewed, to be able to say, hey, God, I see what's going wrong here, and do the work that's necessary to fix it so that I can be in healthy relationships in all of my relationships. So I thank you for being with me this week. I hope that you take this week to examine your relationships and make a decision to be in victoriously healthy relationships. Don't settle for toxic stuff. Don't settle for anything other than healthy. Be willing to do the work when the person is legitimately someone you want to do the work with. No ulterior motives or hidden agendas, but really in relationship with that person. I want to give you a few scripture and then we'll sign off. Ecclesiastes 4 says, 2 people are better than one, for they can help each other succeed. Check it out. That's a great scripture. Amos 2 say, can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction? Proverbs 18 says, they are friends which destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. And 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, don't team up with unbelievers, for how can righteousness partner with wickedness? And so there needs to be an equality, there needs to be a unity, there needs to be a genuineness, and there needs to be a transparency to be in true relationship. So you have a victorious week, and I invite you to join me for the IRM week. Visit us on our website at www.inremembrance.ministries or .com, inremembrance.ministries.com or .org. A little tongue-tied right there. You can also join us tonight at 8 p.m. for our Tuesday Teleprayer. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. for our Adult Bible Study. And we always love to have you on Sundays at 10 a.m. at 1900 North Broadway. We Facebook for those people who will be at work. You can pick us up on your lunch break. But if you're not at work, don't visit us from Bedside Baptist. Come on out and visit us. We would love to meet you in person. You will be glad that you came. Have a victorious week.